Hey everyone, this is week 4. The first post. It's due tonight, and I have about 45 minutes to get this bad boy done. Needless to say, it was a long day at work. So, I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible so I'm not taking too much time. This is going over two chapters, chapter 5 and 6, and this is talking about verbal and nonverbal communications. First one is talking about what is the relationship between words and systems argued by the text, what do they do, the purpose that they serve, words and symbols related to the meaning. Um, Basically, as we humans, we give meaning to words, and words are symbols, depending on what language and culture you belong to. That the words are going to change meanings, the symbols are going to change meanings, meanings in which can be interpreted differently depending in which system uh, you live in. Symbols being the language. Kind of the book gives a couple of examples, but I have the example of eraser versus rubber. So United States we use eraser, and England uses rubber. And I know also trunk versus boot. Um, for me, a lot of them what had to do was soda versus pop. That was a huge thing. I lived in North Dakota for a long time, so everybody called it pop. I don't know. I just called it soda pop or soda. Um, Another one. This one was more Portuguese driven. It was frango versus galinha. So galinha means chicken, and frango does the same thing. However, if you go to different parts of Brazil and you ask for galinha, they will give you a live chicken. So what you really want to say is, give me frango, or can I have a frango? And it's basically they will get you a dead chicken. Again, just different areas have different meanings for things. Two is talking about the dictionary meaning versus what the word is actually used for, and it goes into racism. The definition by the dictionary is racial prejudice, discrimination as one race is above another. The book, and I put race as quotations, but I'm not going to get too much into that one. Um, book And then the article is talking about how there's a lag in between um, what the word meant back then versus what it is now, and there's some dis- there's a little bit of a disconnect between because it takes so long for books and dictionaries to update. So, what the culture is really saying what the word means versus what a book says what it really means. And the book talks about that, how words can be fluid and meaning changing as the culture changes, shifts in paradigms, and at times lagging behind. Uh, and then 3, using the text of primary source, explain the triangle. And I think I used that for two things. I used it, basically for one word and what it is, and then connecting the thought behind it. Uh, that was carnival, right? And you think about a carnival for anybody here is thinking kind of like a little theme park, kind of floating around different states. In my mind, carnival means a celebration in Brazil. So again, it goes back to the whole thing. One country it means something, other ones mean something. So when I moved to North Dakota, everybody's carnival's in town, and I was all excited for it because I thought they were celebrating the same stuff as I used to celebrate in Brazil. Uh, Discuss the most important ideas to present as far as barrier for communication. Discuss these barriers impacted you personally. Communication barriers at work. It happens all the time. I have commanders, I have supervisors that are always being deceitful, and I'm more a literal person, so just tell me how it is. I don't need to be playing that whole political game type stuff. So it's like pulling teeth out of these people. Like, because they just avoid confrontation. I'm not a confrontational person. I'll try to avoid it. However, like if I need to get something done, I need it done now. So you just better tell me, because I don't have the time or luxury to sit around and play around with these games. So it just goes back to being a barrier of communications. Some people respond better with email traffic. Some other people talk about. I'm more of like a person to person. I have to have that interaction with people because I can read people better than some text or whatever. Going on to chapter 6. Talking about a lot of nonverbals this time, and then in what way does nonverbal communication add or detract from the communication process? Um, I think it was section 1 and 2. It detracts from a lot of times being nonverbal, and like you're wearing it on your face, and then you do an eye roll, and it takes away from, and because you don't completely agree with what's being said. Sometimes you're just demeanor. You're closed off. You're not really paying attention to people. So it can be very detracting. However, in addition to it, if you're going to be really good at communicating with people, you have to be engaged with them, right? You have to have that eye-to-eye contact. You sit in there, you're understanding. If you're not understanding, you ask questions, and so on and so forth. You actually engage in the conversation. The explain and define the 2 strongest, most important, and then the 2 weakest, least important forms of non-communication. Be clear and specific. So for me, is just being engaged, right? You're actually acknowledging my presence. I'm not necessarily a presence, but I'm actually communicating with you. Facial expressions will tell you everything to me. If you're just there and just like, whatever, just kind of shrugging, those are not going to be well perceived, at least for me. Anyways, eye contact is a really strong one. The acknowledgement, being engaged, going back and forth. Least important to me, I really don't pay too much close attention to it unless it's something that's of utmost importance. Outside of that, I'm pretty laid back when it comes to nonverbals. The one thing that does drive me absolutely nuts is if I'm talking to you and all of a sudden you just turn your back on me and walk away. An interruption is really gonna drive me nuts. Or if you're just like rolling your eyes all the time. So discuss the role of visual aids in intercultural communications. And what is the image? What are the top 3 tips? So the top 3 tips is keep it simple, straight to the point, 1 idea per slide. Don't have multiple ideas in there because it's human nature. You're just going to be jumping around all over the place. Avoid cluttered noise. So if you have a lot of information there and it's tiny, it just makes it too confusing, kind of a sensory overload for people. I think visual aid is very important because it kind of drives, picture is worth 1,000 words, and then the book brought that up too. It just drives your point to the point, right? It just gives you more meaning behind what you're trying to convey to people. And then, what ways can you best improve your nonverbal communication skills to enhance your own intercultural communications? So, I'm a people's watcher. I always have been, especially when I'm around a new environment. That's like one of the first tips is watch out, try to learn what the other people are doing around you and just kind of blend in. 9 times out of 10, those people are going to be more receptive to you than somebody that just walks in thinking that their stuff don't stink. And I've witnessed that quite often in the military. So yeah, The second one is a employ an observer, or find somebody to kind of be that third party, or a third, um, like an outside uh, view. As you just ask them, I'm like, hey, man, I'm gonna have this conversation with somebody. Can you tell me, if I have any things that I don't necessarily pay attention to, or some things that I need to focus on to make it better? Focus on simple yet specific nonverbals, eye contact, watch reactions, and facial expressions. Don't be reactive to people. Some people are just really wanting just to get a rise out of you, just so they can prove a point, and it's quite. There's a lack for better words. It's quite annoying, really, because they just know what buttons to press. So be mindful about that, and that kind of takes into the second. The last one is mindfulness. Um, just be there, listen, actually care, and be engaged in the conversation, and just just be there, have conversations with people. We need more conversations with people. I think people are just being too disconnected from one another because they're doing this all the time now, or they're behind one of these, whatever the case may be. That's why I just try to go and have conversations with people and actually be, face to face and actually talking to people. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to cover, and 11 minutes wasn't too bad. So hopefully you guys have a good time. Bye bye.